From unbanning problematic people to firing people in charge of making Twitter safe for kids, Elon's doing some messed up things. And now he's in the firing line because of that. So here's what happened. Unfortunately, some messed up person posted a video of a young boy being sexually assaulted. And then it ended up getting a 120,000 views. This happened because a recommendation engine suggested that users follow content related to the exploitation of children. That's not all though, because when users post abusive material, it takes Twitter a long time to take it down. Just by the way, all of this has still been happening since November, when Elon stated that removing child exploitation is priority number 1.
Elon Musk repeatedly tweeted that the company's top priority is to address issues of child sexual abuse material appearing on his platform.
But then he did something really messed up. He fired the team that the e-safety regulator contacted to report child abuse material. The online safety regulator has claimed that it doesn't have any Aussie staff at Twitter that it can contact to take down child exploitation material, because mass firings by Elon Musk shut down the team. Seriously though, first he leverages his Tesla stock to buy Twitter for $44 billion, which just by the way is way above market value, and then he trims the fat. However, in trimming the fat, he let go of some super important people who were in charge of some super important stuff. And now that they're not around, the app has started suffering. Here, take a look at what the online safety regulator's COO stated. "We share our concerns about the stripping out of Twitter's capacity to respond to child sexual exploitation in particular. There are no Australian staff left here." He also said, "The Australian complement was a really critical component of Twitter's safety apparatus as far as we were concerned. And it turns out the Aussie staff found out that they had been locked out of the company's systems in November last year after Musk's firing spree. In fact, things have gotten so bad that Julie Grant, the e-safety commissioner, has written to Elon telling him about how his decisions have impacted Twitter. She stated that axing the Australian team has basically taken away its ability to deal with child exploitation material on Twitter. Seems like Musk has already backed out of his priority number 1. So, earlier in the video, I stated that Musk declared child protection as his first priority when he bought Twitter. But then, a review by NBC News in January found that Twitter accounts that trade child abuse material are still active. On top of that, these accounts have been using thinly veiled hashtags that the social media team hasn't been able to catch on. Now, to be fair to Musk, this has been happening long before him. But how does firing entire departments in charge of making sure these things don't happen make this any better? Plus, can you just fire local staff like that? Greens Senator David Shoebridge stated that it's plain wrong that tech companies can just fire local staff and face no consequences whatsoever. He even stated that there's so much proof that there's terrible material out there on Twitter, so it makes absolutely no sense to have zero local staff that'll respond to complaints. Plus, there's no Aussie office either that could remove offensive material. Cause here's the thing, right? Apart from Meta, big tech refused to even appear at inquiries in Australia. So the point is, these guys really think that they're somewhat beyond the law. The commissioner's office has stated that it's not just that the presence of a trust and safety team in Australia removed content itself, but also they could be contacted regularly if there were any issues. Now there's literally no one regulators can contact, and if they see something messed up happening, well, their hands are pretty much tied. To be fair to Musk, the regulators do have access to regional representatives, but they're managing so many countries at once that it's super difficult for them to deal with the matters. Plus, it's just not the same as being able to pick up your phone and just call the safety team directly. When it comes to this, Twitter is really going to have to up its game, because you know what? Its competitors are doing a much better job. Take a look at Microsoft, for example. It takes them just 2 days to respond respond to complaints about child exploitation material such as live streams on Skype. Now, ideally, those 2 days should be 2 hours, but still, regardless, it's a much better system than Twitter where you don't even have anyone to complain to. And because of this, the regulators are now trying to make it illegal to not have local staff moderate their content. So Ms. Grant has stated that she's debating whether she needs to implement a mandatory code of conduct for social media companies, because she does have the power to do that given to her by the federal government. And something like this would really make sense, won't it? This way, Twitter's gonna have 2 choices: either leave Australia or have a local team, and there's no way the social media platform is going to leave the country. Earlier, Ms. Grant told the parliament that she had rejected draft codes written by the industry. She did that because they didn't have enough safeguards, which happens to be a concern that she's had for a long time now. The commissioner also stated that these big tech companies have done shockingly little to actually fix the child abuse material problem on their platforms. At the same time, Senator Shoebridge has claimed that the industry absolutely cannot be relied upon to regulate itself, and that the government must intervene. He did admit, though, that mandatory codes wouldn't be able to ask Twitter to hire local staff, but what they could do is they could ask for more commitment to detecting illegal material on social media sites. And if that's something that could end up happening, it would really help the regulators. Because one way or the other, Twitter would be forced to hire local staff to address the problems that it absolutely needs to address. At the same time, though, Twitter does claim that it already does a lot to solve this problem, so the question is, does it work? So, to test the company's progress, The Times created a Twitter account and wrote a program that could check the platform for content without actually displaying the images, since they are illegal to view, and the results were shocking. The content wasn't at all difficult to find. In fact, the messed up thing is that Twitter helped promote it through its recommendation algorithm. Among the recommendations, there was an account that featured a questionable profile picture. The person in that picture was someone who was a victim of abuse, and it turned out that the same user followed other messed up accounts too. On top of that, the program also found numerous images that were identified as abusive, and the accounts that posted them were actually offering to sell more. The Times flagged the posts, of course, but nothing really happened, because in late December, the account offered a discounted Christmas deal, which had a bunch of photos and videos. And while Twitter did eventually take down the post, the problem is, it took them 5 freaking days. You can't even say that the Times is biased or anything, because a Canadian regulator ran its own tests too and came to the same conclusion. And it's only going to get worse since Twitter relies on software created by an anti-trafficking organization which hasn't been paid since Musk bought the company. But let's really hope he does get his act together and work towards fixing this issue. And folks, that's all for why Elon Musk is in the firing line for child exploitation material on Twitter.